Have you ever had to wait a really, really long time for a movie to come out? I'm not talking about 1 or 2 or even 3 years. I'm talking over a decade. In our modern age, it seems like the art of building anticipation for something has vanished completely. Entire seasons of television drop all at once, and sequels to movies release every 6 to 7 months. Obviously, there are exceptions to this. People had to wait years for the latest Stranger Things season to drop, which caused a lot of problems because now you've got these adults playing kids, and no one really looks like they used to. It's a whole mess. Things can also just get lost in the shuffle and delayed to infinity. At this point, I don't know if we'll ever get to see the Batman 2 or Grand Theft Auto 6, but for the most part, there are rarely any serious gaps between sequels, seasons, and entertainment as a whole today, which takes a lot of the fun and excitement out of the equation. There's a reason Christmas used to feel magical as a kid, and it's not because you believed in Santa.
Oh, Merry Christmas, everyone!
It's because you used to actually mark your calendar and count down the days until you got to open your presents. Anticipation makes whatever you're getting, be it a gift or a night out at a fancy restaurant or the sequel to one of your favorite film franchises, feel special and memorable. I was a very, very young lad when the first Avatar released. So young, in fact, that I didn't really care when its sequel, The Way of Water, was announced. Avatar is back? So what? What is James Cameron gonna do? Make the Na'vi look even more realistic? Is he gonna create even more jaw-dropping action set pieces? Is he gonna actually make me care about the Sully family?
Smell scone.
Yeah, he did all of that. But I wouldn't know how good Avatar The Way of Water would be until I finally watched it, and it would be a long, long wait until my butt was actually sitting inside our local IMAX theater watching it. However, I still found myself incredibly interested in the lead up to this film for a number of reasons. Firstly, I genuinely believe the original teaser trailer for Avatar The Way of Water is one of the best ever. Just like the film itself, this little teaser is incredibly moving. It's an emotional thing. There's some kind of mystical vibe to it that I really love. Just kind of demands your attention. Secondly, I was interested to see how James Cameron was able to advance his technology. I'm a huge believer in 3D as a format, so I was super excited to see what advancements had been made over the last decade and a half. Thirdly, it had been a decade and a half. I was 11 when the first film came out. I was 24 when the sequel dropped. I've said it many times, but that's truly insane. Rarely do films follow you from childhood to adulthood, but Avatar is something that's always just kind of been there for me. The wait for the second Avatar film felt monumental, impossible, and never-ending. There was this kind of secret assumption deep down with a lot of people, myself included, that the Avatar sequels were actually never going to come out, that they would just be pushed back and delayed, budgets would get too big, scheduling conflicts would arise, and we would never get them. However, in December of 2022, James Cameron once again proved everyone wrong and dropped one of the biggest, most impressive, and genuinely moving pieces of art I've ever seen. I think it's obvious when looking at my YouTube channel or my Letterboxd account that I am a sucker for blockbusters. I love these big tentpole movies that come out and kind of dictate that moment in pop culture. And when I say blockbuster, I don't just mean a movie with a big budget or a big stars or a big cast. I'm talking about big movies with big ideas that force people to talk about them. Oppenheimer and Barbie were both fascinating to live through in real time. The release of those movies was insane. People were hyped. It was genuinely exciting. The first three Pirates of the Caribbean movies are another great example. Even Damien Chazelle's Babylon was a kind of a you had to be there moment. Though the block wasn't exactly busted with this one. I just really like movies that dominate pop culture and the ongoing conversation we're having about movies. And despite what the internet says, the Avatar franchise certainly has some significant cultural weight. Well, James Cameron is back, again, offering you, me, us, all of us, a chance to return to Pandora. Again, is it worth going out and sitting in a room full of strangers for close to 4 hours? Absolutely. To get my overall reaction to Avatar Fire and Ash out of the way right now, I think this is a brilliant new chapter in the Avatar series that has some very interesting and surprising implications for the world going forward. James Cameron delivers some stunning action set pieces and impossibly gorgeous vistas to explore. It's a feast for the eyes and the ears, most of the eyes, but this was expected. What feels really fresh here is Fire and Ash has the most complicated and engaging character moments and arcs so far. I'm actually kind of blown away by it all. I have a very special relationship with the Avatar franchise, and by that I just mean I am obsessed with it. And it's not like in a typical nerdy fan way. I genuinely believe Jim Cameron is a magician. What he's been able to do and create with performance capture. I think this is a very important distinction to make. I think motion capture, it's easy to lump the Avatar films in this category. That's not what's happening. It's so much more than that. It's capturing the actors' movements, their performance, their facial features. Everything they're doing is in the movie. This is nothing short of extraordinary, and it's a shame that this has somehow gone unrecognized by the typical human being out there. There's been this weird anti-CGI push happening for the last few years in the movie space, and I don't really know why. People were very, very mean toward Furiosa, a movie that I could also talk endlessly about. But yeah, people are kind of anti this movie, especially when it first came out, because it looked too computery. I don't know, to me, movies are a way to tell a visual story, and I think a hyper-real ultra digital world is sort of the natural next step, or the evolution, or even the endpoint of the medium itself. George Lucas endured an impossible amount of hate for his trilogy of Star Wars prequels. People lashed out, claiming they looked bad or unrealistic, and that too many computer effects were used in the making of the movies. To this I simply ask, when's the last time you watched The Phantom Menace? For a film from 1999, this looks pretty incredible. But it's not just the effects themselves. George crafted an unbelievably rich and lively world for these pretty stiff characters, I'll admit, to live in. Say what you will about George, but his gift for creating alien worlds and creatures is unmatched. It's a lot like video games. The original Dark Souls, a action RPG set in this really dark, gothic fantasy world, doesn't really have that good graphics. But the attention to detail in the world and the overall art style almost tricks you into thinking you're playing an actual part in this incredibly detailed, fictionalized setting. James Cameron is special because he has a knack for coming up with these insane alien planets and out-of-this-world action set pieces. And he has the ability to do it all with the best technology in the industry. All this to say, the Avatar movies are not overrated when it comes to their visuals. All three movies are literally the best looking things I've ever seen in a theater. But it's the story of these films that I want to break down, specifically this new one. Avatar Fire and Ash picks up literally where The Way of Water leaves off. It was brought up a lot in the marketing of this film that Avatar 2 and 3 were originally written as one giant script, but was split during production, thus paving the way for us to get Way of Water as its own movie and Fire and Ash as its own movie. The water is back, the space wells are back. In a lot of ways, Fire and Ash feels very similar to Way of Water, but this familiarity is a good thing, not a bad thing. In Star Wars, you have different stories, but they all take place in similar settings with the same characters using the same technology. Sure, some of the weapons change, some of the bad guys are different, but overall, the Star Wars films are very similar in both their look and feel, as well as their tone. You know there's going to be X-Wings, Y-Wings, TIE Fighters, lightsabers, but the reuse of these items and recognizable things isn't laziness, it's just a consistency to the world. Critics were expectedly quick to point fingers at James Cameron for copying and recycling plot points from Way of Water for this third film. Do they have a lot in common? Yeah. Do they feature similar scenes? Definitely. Are avatars still hot? 100%. In fact, they're even hotter, literally. Fire and Ash's special little wrinkle is that a new clan of Na'vi are introduced. Barong is the leader of this group, and boy oh boy is she tough and cool and scary and tough and tall and scary and very cool. She adds a whole lot to the mechanics of this movie and is honestly one of the more interesting pieces of plot progression we've gotten out of the entire franchise. For years, people have claimed that the Avatar films have bad or non-existent plots and that the characters aren't memorable. Varong solves this problem, but to this I say, huh? Say what you will about the Avatar franchise, I know you, deep down in your heart of hearts, know who this guy is. You've seen him before. I don't know why we act like a movie can't be culturally relevant if you can't name more than 3 or 4 characters. I really enjoy Whiplash, the movie, not the condition. I've seen it twice and I think it's a legitimately great piece of music-focused filmmaking. Everything about it is well made, down to the performances, the music, the editing, the story. It's a great movie. And it's certainly made a mark culturally, as Whiplash is 100% part of the contemporary film bro canon at this point. But do I know the name of this guy? No. I'm telling you right now, I have no idea what this guy's name is in the movie. But here's the key thing. I'm also not claiming this movie sucks or that it's not relevant because I can't remember his name. I think it's a great movie and really relevant. The internet has, for some reason, chosen to box James Cameron in, fighting tooth and nail to convince people they actually don't care about Avatar, when the reality is these people are getting left behind because Avatar rules. I want to start with Miles Quaritch, the villain of the series. Portrayed by the impeccable Stephen Lang, Quaritch is honestly one of the more interesting sci-fi villains I can even think of. The original human Quaritch died in Avatar 1, but before that happened, his soul, or his memories, or his DNA, I don't know how it works, was copied and cloned onto an Avatar body, much like Jake Sully in the original Avatar film. This was a genius move by Mr. Cameron. Like Darth Vader in Star Wars, the Avatar films have their own big bad guy who looms over the entire franchise. Is it corny that Quaritch comes back to life after he died? A little bit. But there's so much more at stake when there's a real history between the good guys and the bad guys, and I'm so glad we've gotten to follow this guy.
Your recom now, Colonel, loaded with my memories and my charm. What you won't remember is my death because it hasn't happened yet, and it ain't gonna.
We do not care.
Over the last 3 films, just as we have the Sully family. And speaking of the Sullys, they've shown a lot of growth too. In Way of Water, there's a clear divide between the adults and the children. You get the sense that Jake and Neytiri do not trust their children, the ones they actually birthed and the ones they've added along the way. However, in Fire and Ash, everybody's already been through some serious stuff. I think it's kind of fascinating to see how these characters change from film to film because there's really not a lot of time between Way of Water and Fire and Ash. It's like a couple weeks or days, months, I don't know. Fire and Ash is all about reckoning with loss, dealing with grief, and assessing damage. I think the assumption was that the title Fire and Ash would be very literal. Like, yeah, now we're introducing the fire-type Na'vi. But after actually seeing Fire and Ash, this title is much more meaningful and metaphorical than I expected. The Sullys are dealing with the loss of loved ones and are still on the run. The Way of Water shows how brutal this world can be, with the film essentially pushing all these characters closer and closer to the edge of a cliff. What will Jake do now that Natayam is gone? What will Neytiri do? Will Quaritch use his second chance for redemption or revenge? Things change significantly in Fire and Ash. Fire leads to Ash, and out of this Ash comes tougher, meaner, darker characters. Vrong represents the worst of this world and the franchise. She's doing some truly heinous things in this movie, which unsurprisingly catches the attention of Miles Quaritch. The two form a very mutually beneficial bond, becoming essentially a Pandora power couple. This coupling may be the single best idea to come out of the head of James Cameron, as the two feel like the natural extensions of one another, wreaking havoc on the Sully family and the Na'vi for their own personal reasons. However, Fire and Ash really is the Spider and Kiri movie. It was pretty obvious in Way of Water that Kiri was being set up to become the most important character in this series, and Fire and Ash only cements this further. However, Spider is given a lot to do in Fire and Ash as well. Some good, and some bad. I'm not gonna lie, the thing Spider says is really cringe, but to me, Spider is a much easier pill to swallow when you view him under the lens of classic James Cameron characters. In the world of Jake, Sully, and Neytiri, Spider stands out.
Where is Jake Sully?
I don't know!
He's awkward, constantly trying to prove himself, and talks like a middle schooler. But all these things are true of the character. So why shouldn't he be kind of cringe? I think you need to go back and rewatch Terminator 2 and Titanic if you think the Avatar films have corny dialogue. James Cameron has always been a relatively simple writer, but this isn't a bug, it's a feature. Humans can be pretty dull and pretty blunt. James Cameron knows this. Clear-cut communication is honestly a relief in this day and age of metaphors within metaphors on top of theories. Sometimes it's simply refreshing when a dad plainly states that he's disappointed in his son for messing up. It's funny when Spider calls his blue-skinned step-siblings bro.
Dude.
Bro!
Because that's how we all talk. Spider is a goofy character, but it's ridiculous to assume James Cameron doesn't know this. However, I think it's safe to say the star of the show, really the last 2 movies, is Kiri. Here you have this character who's only alive due to some weird blend of science fiction and acts of God. But this is true literally too. The character Kiri wouldn't be able to exist without extensive research into special effects in our actual real world. Not only is this young girl a de-aged Sigourney Weaver acting in these incredible motion performance capture devices, she's a giant blue de-aged Sigourney Weaver. Kiri is the film's connection to the spiritual world. James Cameron literally makes her a Jesus-like figure. She's the product of a miraculous conception, she has deep connections to Awa, the goddess of Pandora, and she has incredible powers. It's amazing a character as weird and goofy as Kiri can work so well. A lot of this is due to Sigourney herself, who is really incredible. It's almost poetic, James Cameron using someone like Sigourney to portray a younger alien version of herself. Throughout the Avatar films, you'll see all kinds of nods and allusions to aliens, as well as James Cameron's other films like Terminator, Titanic, and of course Piranha.
Deadly. Piranha 2. It's here. It's alive. And it's multiplying.
We spliced in genes from different species to create the ultimate killer organism.
One of the biggest complaints I've seen online about this third Avatar film is that it's a copy of Way of Water. While this is kind of true, so what? Some of the best and most beloved movies of all time are essentially retellings of other stories. Shakespeare himself said there's only like 6 or 7 stories to tell. How many movies that you love are Romeo and Juliet? How many movies that you love are Gone with the Wind, Casablanca, Aliens in the Attic?
Wait, what are these? Let me see. I picked it up first. Where have you been?
Oh, shut up, you little...
What?
Even Mr. Jim Cameron does this. Terminator 2 is essentially the same story as the first, but Cameron uses this familiarity to do some incredible things. Remember the Terminator? The bad guy in the first movie? Well, he's good now. I don't see this as being lazy, it's simply a director doing different iterations of the same stories. The Avatar films get a lot easier to digest and understand when you look at them like different chapters in the Sully family's life. If building up a group of scrappy, blood-hungry rebels to take one final attack on the bad guy's massive ship, where the main good guy and the main bad guy duke it out before a massive explosion goes off for the second time, if all that sounds like a boring, overdone plot point, you have the right to believe that. But I question why that sounds boring to you, because I wasn't describing Avatar Fire and Ash, I was recapping Return of the Jedi.
Alright, Wedge, go for the power regulator on the North Tower.
You know, the movie where the heroes do the exact same thing they did in the original Star Wars.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme, every stanza kind of rhymes with the last one.
Will the blue people fight humans? Yes. Will there be massive, epic fights, mostly involving water and nature? Yes. Will the jungle glow at night? Of course. The Avatar movies are derivative and unoriginal in their structure, sure, but they have true beating hearts beneath it all. This is what separates the Avatar franchise from anything else. The children tell you constantly what the true core of these films are with their family mottos. Sullys stick together, and Sullys never quit. To me, the Avatar franchise is about never quitting, both literally and figuratively. The films take the bold stance that, yeah, violence is kind of the answer. This is especially true in Avatar Fire and Ash. If we're gonna live in peace, we kinda need to kill all these people. But you've also got James Cameron spending decades of his life on this project. And it's not just him, it's thousands of VFX artists and painters and composers and the cast and the crew. Everyone is working together to make these unparalleled pieces of modern visual art possible. And it's beautiful. Something deep down in me still prefers The Way of Water to Fire and Ash, but I can't deny this third Avatar film features the most stunning visuals to date. It's amazing that not once do you ever remind yourself what you're watching isn't real. 10-foot tall blue people are holding hands with tiny human actors, and it never once looks fake or out of place or even uncanny. The action here is huge, with the Wind Trader sequence and the big finale at the end of the movie being some of my favorite scenes ever. There's lots of shooting, stabbing, bow and arrowing, as you expect, but James Cameron gets weird with it too, like actually weird here. With each new film, I feel like I understand Pandora less and more at the same time. The introduction of Wrong really is interesting, and she does a lot of cool, never before seen things in this film. We get some cool new looks at the RDA facilities, we get epic aerial combat, and we get a drug-fueled sex tent. James Cameron really lets it all hang out in Fire and Ash in a way that's genuinely exciting to watch. I can see why people might not like this film, but I thoroughly enjoyed Avatar Fire and Ash. I don't care if that makes me a consumer. I don't care if you think I love CGI slop. I'm just a human being telling you, other human beings, that I have something in my life I really truly find compelling in an age where everything seems to be some thrown together hack job, where no one really cares. You can say whatever you want about James Cameron, but he cares deeply about this world, and so do I. The Avatar hate is really forced at this point. I made a video trying to kind of explain how Avatar broke everyone's brains, but I'm kind of over trying to change people's minds on this franchise. It's been 16 years. You either get it or you don't. I don't think James Cameron is even concerned with non-believers at this point. The movies continue to make billions of dollars at the box office. They have successful video games based on them. I mean, the Avatar films even have their own theme park land in Disney World. I'm over arguing whether or not the Avatar franchise has cultural impact. And this is what's so disappointing about people's attitude toward this franchise. There's this assumption that movies are always supposed to be high art or adult or realistic, and anything that doesn't fit into these categories is somehow lesser than. Hardcore cinephiles out there might wince when I say that Avatar 2 is one of the best movies ever made, but that's just how I feel. To me, the worst thing you can be is closed-minded. I consider myself a big movie guy. I really enjoy learning about directors and going into the filmographies of people I've never heard of before. David Cronenberg, Sofia Coppola, David Lynch, the Safdie brothers, these people have created some of my favorite movies of all time and are also considered to be quote-unquote art house directors. But I don't see their movies any differently than, say, something like a Mad Max or the original Spider-Man trilogy from Sam Raimi. And obviously the same goes for the Avatar franchise. I get the sense that for some people out there, a movie isn't worth being made if they don't end up liking it. True Avatar heads know this, but there's this agenda being pushed against us and James Cameron himself that these movies are a mistake, that they're a crime against God and nature, and that James Cameron is wasting his time with them. I'm going to get a little pretentious here, but I think the Avatar movies please God tremendously. I think most movies do in a way. Movies are art, and the world is a better place that they exist, whether you like them or not. I just feel incredibly lucky to be part of the same world where movies as weird and expensive and impressive and moving as the Avatar series exists. And I will always be ready to take whatever wild ride James Cameron throws at us next. I really hope to see more Avatar films hit theaters. From what I've seen and heard, Avatar 4 and 5 will be bigger and even crazier. But for now, the trilogy serves as a reminder what people, artists, are capable of. It really is the best of both worlds. I can spend hours trying to convince you that the Avatar movies are secretly these thematically rich, deeply moving films about faith, family, religion, playing God. But I can also just sit back, turn my brain off, and enjoy the pretty colors. So come on in. The water's fine. I'm going to sound like an advertisement here, but I highly recommend you go out and watch Avatar Fire and Ash on the biggest screen possible. Go to your IMAX, go to your local theater. If you don't have an IMAX, just don't watch this on your phone. These movies are meant to be seen on a huge screen. I think the 3D really works here. This movie was made using high frame rate, and that's very off-putting to people. I think it really works. I think first 5 minutes or so are kind of weird. You're like, this looks like a video game, but the scenes where it is high frame rate honestly look photorealistic. I'm not even kidding. And it's remarkable that the best looking scenes in the movie are the ones where the Na'vi are interacting with real sets and real people. You'd think that the close-up shots with just the Na'vi or the humans behind a green screen would look the best. No, when the characters are interacting with each other, I really can't believe how good it looks. I think James Cameron has really tapped into our need for simple, relatable stories. And I know it sounds crazy to say that a story of an alien family that are all blue out in space is relatable, but it really is. It's not so much about these epic battles or these weird otherworldly creatures that the Sully family deals with, or the violence or anything. Like I said, it's about sticking together and being there for your family. And it's also about what you do when you don't have family anymore. James Cameron has always been really efficient with the way he tells stories. He gets to the point, he gets to the heart of things. There's a reason you feel for Sarah Connor. There's a reason you empathize with Jack and Rose on the Titanic. He's a master storyteller, and I think what sets him apart is that he's really good at visual storytelling. There's several scenes in Avatar Fire and Ash that made me go like this. I was speechless several times, and my eyebrows raised so much that they knocked my 3D glasses off my head. It really is truly unbelievable stuff happening here, and I wish that everyone would go and see it and enjoy it. I know that's not possible. I know these movies aren't for everybody, but they really are special and feel very different than other blockbusters out there. Like I said, there's real heart, there's a real emotional core to these movies, and I think it's ridiculous people act like there are no compelling characters, there's no compelling plots or story beats in the Avatar franchise, because to me that's why I've latched on to the films in the first place. This family drama, the whale harvesting, the banshee flying, the squids, I mean, so much is happening, but at the end of the day, James Cameron is telling a very simple story about grief, about loss, about sticking together with your family, and it just so happens to be the most impressive visual spectacle I've ever seen. I love these movies. I'm biased. What are you going to do? If anything, go see this movie just to catch a glimpse of Christopher Nolan's The Odyssey. I don't know how that movie's going to turn out, but the little clip they showed was insane. Avengers Doomsday, not so much. We'll wait on that one.